Amazing. So thank you so much for coming and thank you for the patience while we work through some of the technical problems. I'm very excited to have you all join us for the Summer Training and Research Program, or the STAR program at UHN. My name is Amanda Very, and I'm the lead of the Office of Research Trainees at UHN. And we are so excited to offer this program for you this summer. And thank you all for being part of it. So to start, before we get started with the official program, I want to first start by acknowledging this land on which UHN operates. There has been a UHN hospital on this land since 1829. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. This land is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people, and we are grateful for the opportunity to have to work and live here. We remember and honor the legacy of the peoples who have been there before us and all who work to make the promise and the challenge of truth and reconciliation real. So I'd like to take a moment for all of you to reflect on the land that you are currently on. We have some resources here. You can text in and get your own land information for the area that you are at. We know many of you are connecting from all over, so that's great. You can also use the QR code, scan it, and you'll find more resources. Amazing. So now I just want to tell you a little bit about our programming for what the STAR program is. This consists of a bunch of different learning sessions that we've created for you over the course of the summer so that you can learn about different research and professional development skills. So this includes things like learning about LinkedIn today, as well as exploring careers in research and healthcare. We are doing an amazing session with UHN libraries. We'll teach you about different tools for asking research questions, searching for research articles, and things like that. We will have a panel session in informational grad school, which I'm really excited about. That was really fun last year. We will have a presentation about how to present your research. We're also collaborating with Baycrest Hospital to do a session on resumes and cover letters, which should be interesting as well. Now, if you are a UHN Research Summer student, you will also have access to present your research at the end of the summer. We have virtual research presentations where you'll submit your talk, and we'll tell you all the details about that later, to be part of the research virtual research day. And then out of all those presentations, we'll pick the top presentations and have you come back and give your presentation in person at our Research and Networking Day on August 3rd. Now, if you are part of UHN Research and you attend 4 learning sessions and participate in the virtual research presentations, you'll be able to receive a certificate of program completion. Now, of course, we have others joining us here who aren't part of UHN Research, and that's totally okay. We welcome you, and we're excited to have you part of our program. Please feel free to attend any or all learning sessions that you're interested in, and we're excited to engage with you. Okay, so now we'll get started talking about LinkedIn. So I want to start off by telling you a little bit about my experience with LinkedIn. I built a profile at the start of my graduate school degree. I did my PhD at the University of Toronto in the molecular genetics department. And I kind of chose to start slowly and continue to optimize my profile over time. And so to do that, I really took a lot of different LinkedIn courses to learn more tips. I went to seminars by headhunters that gave me tips of how they look at LinkedIn and what they look for. And most importantly, LinkedIn was a huge part of my job search. And I can 100% say I got the current job that I have now completely because of LinkedIn, because if it hadn't been for LinkedIn, I wouldn't have seen the job. I wouldn't have been able to connect with people who have previously been in the role. And so I'm a huge advocate for it because it really worked for me. I will say that there is a free and a paid version of LinkedIn, but all of the tips I'm going to give you are for the free version. I like it better. I don't think you need the paid version. There's a lot you can do with just the free account. So to get started, I first want to know about where you all are coming from and what your experiences with LinkedIn are. So I have this poll everywhere here. I will put the link in the chat as well. And I would love you to just check in and let us know, what is your experience with LinkedIn? So do you have a profile? How comfortable are you with it? Do you use it often? And etc. And this is great because we get to see your responses right away. So we have quite a few people that have a moderate profile. They have somewhat completed, but use it sometimes. Some people have one, but don't use it very much. We're starting to see a boom of people who don't have a profile, which is totally fine. Amazing. So I like doing this because it gives us an idea of who's in the audience. And no matter where you are in your journey with LinkedIn, we'll provide tips for each and every one of you. So I hope you find use no matter where you are in your journey. Amazing. Okay, there's going to be a couple of other poll everywhere interactions as we go along. So if you keep your poll everywhere open, that would be handy. Okay, so moving on. I want to talk a little bit about the uses for LinkedIn and the main reasons why I think that LinkedIn is great. So the first thing is to craft an online presence or an online brand. And I always like to think about this as if you're interviewing for a job or you're reaching out to a PI and asking about graduate school opportunities in their lab or undergrad research opportunities, and they Google you, what do you think that they'll find? And so having a good LinkedIn profile is a great way to kind of stack the odds in your favor by having them find your LinkedIn first instead of your Instagram or your Twitter or something else. And to give them the information that you want them to see. So it provides an online brand of your curated content for what you want people to see about you. And I love that part because you can control the conversation, you can control kind of what comes up first and what people will learn about you. Another thing that I love about LinkedIn is you can use it for building and maintaining your network. And I think this is critical at every stage, but I think especially for the undergrads in our audience, this is a wonderful thing to start doing now because you can do it slowly. And I'll give you tips later on of how to build it and maintain your network. Next, and the thing that I did a lot of in grad school is using it for career exploration. We'll talk about this as well, but it can give you a good way to try and figure out more about different careers and find the right one for you. And lastly, of course, a lot of people use LinkedIn for finding jobs. So next, I want to know, what do you want to use LinkedIn for? So again, this is a poll everywhere question. We'd love to hear about, what are you interested in using LinkedIn for? First up, we have networking, which is great. Oh, amazing. Opportunities, job searching, connecting, meeting people, learning. I know these word clouds get kind of jumbled if you add in more than one word, so that can be kind of tricky. But I think we're seeing a lot of really good things: job hunting, networking opportunities, searching, a lot of great uses. So hopefully we'll be able to help provide tools to help you on those journeys. Amazing. We're going to start off with how to build a LinkedIn profile and how to craft that online brand. And we're going to start off really basic, and then we'll get more intense as we go along. So first, I want to just start with the absolute basics, which is your name. And I know this might be simple, you know what your name is, but there's a couple little tips of things you can do to make it extra special. So if we have any graduate students or postdocs in the crowd, I add PhD to my last name because I want it to be striking that I have a PhD, especially since I know I look a little bit young. I like to add that in there right away so people see it. Next is pronunciation. I have a very easy name to pronounce, I believe, but I like to include the pronunciation anyways because it demonstrates that I'm interested in learning about the proper pronunciation of your name and that I will take the effort to look it up if you have it on your profile. So it's a lovely thing to do, especially and with the pronouns as well. I have my pronouns there, but I also go and before a meeting with somebody, if they have them, I check the pronunciation of their name and the pronouns that they use so that I can make sure that I'm referring to them in a respectful way. So I encourage you to do the same. Next step, we have picking the right profile picture. And here I just use an example of Jennifer Lopez because she has a LinkedIn profile and she has a great photo. So some of the tips you want to do here is you want to pick a recent photo that looks like you. Um, you want to use a picture that's just of you. Lots of people try to use group photos and they crop themselves out, or selfies. And you may not think you can tell, but a lot of the time you really can. So you might as well just take a purposeful photo that you like of just you. You want to zoom in so that at least 60% of the circle is filled with your face. There's always a question of what's considered professional attire and what you should wear in those photos. But I think that you should just wear what you would wear to work, or that you would like to wear to work for your current or dream job. So that can be a spectrum of different things, but pick a photo where you feel comfortable and where you're happy with what you're wearing. And lastly, and this one's contentious, but you should choose a picture with a simple or white background. I personally don't love profile pictures with white backgrounds, but it's the #1 tip that all the recruiters tell you. If you look on the internet, they all suggest the same thing. So I provide a tip that I found on TikTok that is an alternative. So what you can do, and you can do this on Canva in the paid account, or you can also do it on PowerPoint. You can take a photo of you that you like if it doesn't have a simple background. Then you could just remove the background. And Canva does this with one click. PowerPoint, you have to click a couple of times maybe to get it to go perfectly, but you can easily remove the background. And then I like to just add in a neutral background instead. I think it looks better to add a little bit of a color instead of pure white, but again, you're aiming for that simple background instead of the more complicated one on the left. So that's just a tip I learned from TikTok. Next, in addition to your profile picture, you also have the option of adding a background image, and this will show up at the top of your profile. And you can pick any image that you would like. You can pick pictures that are relevant to your research, like the fluorescence photos at the bottom. The photo on the top is a picture that I actually have as my background image. When I was working in the lab, I really liked science communication, and I liked making agar art where I would draw different pictures with my microbes and then would use different colors and things to make pretty art. So I think that says something about me, and so I use that as my background photo. So if you have something that you'd like to display, you can do that. If you don't, or you want something more crisp or clean, you can also use Canva to create backgrounds. They have a whole part of their website. Canva is a design software, by the way, and they have a free version that's fantastic. So definitely check that out if you don't know about it. But they have a whole part of their website that is set up to give you templates and different designs for how you can create your background for LinkedIn. So it's really purposeful that they have like a LinkedIn section. And here are just some of the examples. You could have your name, the same header that you have on your resume or your cover letter, as well as some clean and crisp designs that they have. Okay, so next is the headline. And this is the only thing that people will see besides your name when they're scrolling through different profiles. So it has to be something that you would think would grab their attention so that they would want to click it and see more about you. So you really want it to be impactful. And really grab the attention of who you're trying to grab the attention of. And in a lot of cases, that's your future employer or a recruiter. Now, the tricky part here is that very few people are looking for an undergraduate student or a graduate student or a postdoc. So while those are very descriptive of what your current position might be, you might want to try to use other terms to try and grab the attention more. Obviously, you always want them to be truthful and very descriptive of what you're doing, but you can kind of use different terms. So you can also have the option of not limiting yourself to one, so you can put multiple of them and separate them, the different titles, with a bar. So some of the examples that you could put, so let's say you're an undergrad doing summer research, you could write research assistant, and that is technically your title, so that works great. And it gives that a little bit more of an understanding of the work that you're doing. You could also write, if you're in undergrad and you're studying neuroscience, you could write neuroscience major or neuroscience researcher if you're doing research. Or if you have a position like the president of an undergrad student association or a volunteer position or something like that, you can write that as well. If you like doing outreach, you can do that you're an outreach volunteer. There's lots of different options, but just try to think of the things that you're proud of that you're doing in your life and try to describe those in a compelling way that other people might be interested in. Next is the About section, which is one of the hardest ones for a lot of people to write. And it's something that I suggest that you do slowly over time. You don't have to have the perfect one right away. The biggest tip I have is to write it in a Word document first, because sometimes writing in that little LinkedIn box can kind of stress you out. So just try to write in a Word document, and think about what would you want a recruiter or employer to know about you if they didn't read any part of your profile. And if you're not looking for jobs right now, then instead think about what you would want, a PI to read about you, or what would you want other people in your network to read about you. And again, we're using this as a part to say, this may be the only part that they read about your profile, so you really want to capture their attention. And here I like to think of this a lot like the elevator pitches that you would give or that you would prepare. You want to tell a story about yourself and try to sell yourself in a way. So don't make it all facts or titles. You want to tell a story about who you are. So, for example, you might talk about what are the things that you're passionate about. You can explain a little bit about your current position. You can also explain what you're looking for. So you in my LinkedIn about section, I often write that I'm passionate about supporting graduate students and postdocs with their career development. So I'm open to meeting with anybody in that space, as well as anybody who also would like support in those areas. So you can write that directly. You can also say if you want to build your network, you can write that in there. If you're looking for a specific kind of career, you can also write that in there. So there's lots of different options there. And some of the best About sections I've ever read were ones where you read them and you knew exactly what kind of job the person was looking for, because they had crafted it in a particular way where they could hit the right points. So what you would do there is look at job postings of things you're interested in, and then look at those requirements of what the skills they require or the other requirements that they need, and then add those words and add those ideas into your About section. Another cool tip about these sections now with AI softwares like ChatGPT, I've seen, again, on TikTok, that you can take your resume, put it into ChatGPT, and ask ChatGPT to write you an About section that captures your experiences for a research job, and they'll draft something for you. You always want to make sure that it's accurate, and you can use that as a starting point and then edit it. Or if you write one and you want to make it better, you can put your About section into ChatGPT and then ask them to rewrite it or edit it in a way that's more compelling or adds more action words or things like that. So it's just a cool tip of how you can use artificial intelligence to help you with this process. Okay, so next you have your experience section. And I like to think of this as very much like your resume. And I would often start with my resume and then create the experience section. So using one to influence the other, you always want to make sure that the two are consistent. So might as well take it in that respect. So for the experience section, you want to add in your current and past experiences, and you want to focus on the ones that are most recent and most relevant. A very popular mistake that a lot of people make on their resumes and on their LinkedIn is just putting everything that they've ever done. You really want to cultivate it to be more about where you want to go in the future. So if you are looking for postdoc positions in the future, or grad school positions, or you're looking to get into med school, then maybe you don't need to put on there that you were a server at Pizza Hut. So just think about those experiences and write out the ones that are the most relevant at the top, because that's what somebody would want to see the most. What's really cool about LinkedIn is you can add any kind of experience. You can also include unpaid or volunteer experiences, leadership experiences, and all those kinds of things that tell the story about you. And it's really one of the benefits here is that you do have more space than you would in a resume. Now, it's important that when you list your experiences, you also add descriptions of them. And so you really want to focus on these descriptions, just like you would on a resume, in making measurable outcomes. And this tells them that, yes, you had this experience, but what came out of it? Or what were you able to accomplish because of that experience? And so here are some of the examples. They might be a little bit more catered towards the graduate student or postdoc. kind of experiences, but I hope that they give you a good idea of what we mean by measurable outcomes. So you could write that you crafted award applications that were successful in securing X number of dollars of research funding. So that right there tells them that you have great communication skills and grant writing skills because you were able to secure those funds. And I love that quantifiable part of how much money you brought in. You can always say that you have great communication skills, but it's better if you say you communicated your research through presentations at this many conferences. So I mean, again, it gives an example of how you know you have those great communication skills. And the same if you're a teaching assistant or you've given a lecture or things like that, you can write how many students you've impacted. Same if you mentor or things like that, you can add those numbers in, and it really just makes it more impactful. And of course, you want to highlight important transferable skills that can be applied to other positions you're looking for in the future. Now, on the don't side, you don't want to deviate from your resume too much because especially if you're applying to jobs, people will look at both. So you want to make sure that it's accurate and that you're being authentic. Again, you don't want to highlight things that are completely irrelevant to your career path. You don't want to add very technical details about your research, and this is the same for your resume. I almost never write about my actual research in my resume for my PhD because the kinds of jobs that I'm going for don't have to do with my research skills anymore. So nobody cares that I know how to do PCR, Western blots, and things like that. If you are going for research positions though in the future and they require those skills, then you should definitely include those technical details. So it's about knowing what kind of people you're trying to attract and what kind of positions you're looking for and catering the material to that. And lastly, don't be scared to mention your accomplishments. I know a lot of people find it difficult to really brag about their accomplishments, but that's what this is for. So try to lean into it. Now, if you really want to take that experience section and take it to the next level, one of the things you can do is add links to your work. And so this can be ways to bring in more content to try to, again, create that brand and direct people to what you want them to see about you. So you can include personal websites, blogs, articles you've written, projects you've worked on, or more. So as an example here, you can see that I've been a science communication and outreach volunteer. And so I've included not only a list of kind of the events that I've done, but I also have a link to a podcast that I was on. I have pictures of a crocheting workshop that I did, and Dr. Hill was there for that workshop and was able to learn how to crochet as well. And other links to different projects that I was part of that I'm proud of and that I would like other people to see. Next, back onto that topic of branding. When you make a LinkedIn profile, by default, it'll give you a URL that has a huge slew of numbers and letters after it. And that's just like not very polished looking. So it's really easy. There's one button you take to customize it, and you can put it to anything you want. Now, I'm very fortunate, of course, that I was the first Amanda Berry to create this. So I got the linked with my exact name, but you can just craft it into being something short that you want it to be. And what's really cool about this is then you can add it to your email signature, you can add it to your resume or cover letter. And again, it just creates a little bit more tightness of that brand. I also love hyperlinking my LinkedIn to my resume and my cover letter in the header because I'm proud of my LinkedIn, and I think I would be happy if people who are hiring me or were interviewing me will go to my LinkedIn to see other things about me. So that's another option that you have. Okay, so next we're going to talk about building and maintaining your network, which is another important piece. So no matter what stage you are at, and no matter what you're planning on doing with your life, building your network is important, and it can help you with so many different things. That includes you can find people to collaborate with on projects or events. You can learn about different research and training environments, training opportunities, sorry. I actually find events on there all the time of other people, things other people are posting, which I love. Of course, you can explore new jobs, but you can also look at different opportunities that are available. You can do, you can expand your network. There's lots of things you can do. So your network can help you to find other people to connect with. They can help you find other jobs you wouldn't necessarily seen. So it's really useful to have this network. Now, the best tip I can give you is to start slowly because it can be overwhelming, especially if you wait until you're looking for a job to start networking and building your network. So what you can do is try to start naturally, building it gradually and organically by adding your friends and your family and coworkers. Even think about people that you've known in the past from different experiences. And that's a great way to start to get the first couple of people. They also, LinkedIn recommends people for you to connect with, which is a great way too. You can go through and see who you know, and that can remind you of who you can connect with. I love also sending connection requests to people that I meet at meetings or conferences or events that you attend. And that's another, easy way to do it to build your network. So for example, I often have meetings with different trainees through my job. And at the meeting, I'll look around and see who's in the room, and then I'll find them on LinkedIn and send them a message and connect with them. So that's a great way to just slowly build your network. Now, the best way to add connections is to add a personal note. And this is obviously not as necessary if you're adding your dad as a connection or something like that. But if you're ever adding somebody that's outside of your immediate circle, I highly recommend you do this every single time. So in this example here, I press connect and I want to connect with Kevin Smith, who's the CEO of UHN. And it automatically gives you a pop-up that says, asks you if you want to add a note. And again, I'll say this one more time because it's so important. Please add these notes every single time you connect with somebody. This dramatically increases the likelihood of acceptance, and it helps build the relationship. I really like it too because if I'm sending an invitation to somebody and I write where I met them, then later on, if I go back, 3 years from now and I forget where I met that person, I can go through my message history, and it'll clearly say, oh yeah, I met them at that meeting. So it really helps build that timeline as well. So just some tips for how to write these invitations. Be sure that you're brief and professional. They do have a character limit, so they'll force you to be brief anyways, but make sure that you just think about what you're writing and be professional with it. Be direct, indicate how you met them, who connected you, or why you're reaching out. If you're cold connecting with somebody, which means you have no connection, you've never met them before, that's fine too. You just message them and say, I saw your profile and I'm really interested in your career path, and I'd love to connect. And that's fine too. You don't have to know the person beforehand. You are completely welcome to ask in that connection request why you're connecting. Ask them for advice or ask them for an informational interview if you want. You don't have to. But that's a great way for them to know why you're connecting. And it, again, increases the chance of them accepting because they can see it and say, oh yeah, I have some time. I'm happy to give advice. Don't be scared to do this. Lots of people are scared to connect with people they don't know. But the worst thing that can happen is the person ignores your request. So really take a chance and see what happens. Never ask for a job or demand too much attention or help. This has been a huge concern lately. I find people are connecting on LinkedIn and are just asking for way too much of people. And it happens to me all the time. And I'm always surprised. You always have to remember that how you interact with people will reflect on you. So I will take how I think of you based off of how you treat me. And so it's always important to be professional and think about what you're asking for so that you leave a good impression on people, because you never know what kind of effect they can have on your future. And it's always just best to keep good connections. Lastly, a big one, don't request connections on the mobile app. I love using LinkedIn on my phone, but definitely connect on the desktop, because if you request connections on the mobile app, it automatically sends a request and it doesn't prompt you to leave a note. So that's just a small tip. Okay, so now you might be asking, how exactly do I write these? And I really want to show you 2 examples here of very simple, very clean messages of what you could write to somebody. So this is the first one of if you were in a meeting with somebody and you wanted to connect with them, You could write and say, hey, Emily, it was great meeting you today at that meeting we both went to. I'd love to stay connected. That's it. Very simple, very effective. Another option, let's say you attend a workshop that Dr. Hill gives. Then you can connect after and say, dear Dr. Hill, I attended your workshop today on presentation skills. Wanted to thank you for the useful tips you've shared. I'd love to stay connected. And that's a short and sweet, effective way of showing that how you know them and that you'd like to stay connected. So those are very simple examples. Just to show you again that it doesn't have to be intimidating. I'll give you a challenge here. I'll encourage each and every one of you in the room here, if you're not already connected with me, that you add me on LinkedIn and practice writing those personal notes by sending one to me. Now, I will promise 100% I will accept your invitation if you send it with a letter. And I 100% promise I will not accept your request if you don't send a personalized invite. And I say this because I've given this workshop so many times. And even after telling people to do this, I get 50-50% of people who send requests with a note and people who don't. So I'm promising if you don't send a request with a note, I will not accept it. And no pressure. You don't actually have to connect with me if you don't want to. But I just want you to reach out to somebody today, practice this process, and just try it out. Because once you do it a couple of times, it doesn't feel scary anymore. Okay, so now that you've built your relationships and your connections a little bit, now the hardest part is really maintaining those connections. And it is something that I've definitely struggled with a lot. And so I think LinkedIn is a perfect way to try and maintain those connections because it can be easier than, maintaining them through other means. So a couple of tips for how you can maintain relationships with your connections. One is to engage with their content. So again, when you're connected, you'll see their activity on your feed, and you can like their posts and comment on their posts when they, share an article and you read it and you like it. You can write something there, and that will just remind them a little bit of you. You can also send them short messages when it's their birthday or it's the holidays. Some of the best connections that I have of people who have done this effectively, they'll message me, once a year or every 6 months, and they'll tell me an update on what's going on in their life. And I just love that because I love hearing what people are doing. And it just also reminds you who they are. So that person is on top of mind again. And then, you can, at that point, when you reconnect, you can ask for something again. You're always welcome to. So you can ask for an informational interview again, an introduction to a connection. I've had people reach out to me a year later and ask, for recommendations about how they should apply for a job or things like that. And it's a great way to just keep that connection going. And the number one, the easiest thing you can do to maintain relationships is just to be active yourself. And because the more active you are, the more that you'll show up on their feeds. So how do you build your own LinkedIn presence? So there's a couple of easy ways to be an engaged LinkedIn user. The first is to engage with posted content. So again, this is liking other people's posts, commenting on other people's posts, commenting on articles. I love seeing when other people get jobs. So congratulate them when they have new updates or promotions or things like that. So those are really easy ways that you can have activity that will then pop up on other people's feeds. Now that's the easy part that you can do by checking your phone every day. I like checking it on my phone because it can be something that you do while you're waiting for the bus or things like that. And just check it every day and just look at what's up and have a little bit of an engagement. So that's the easy part. But if you're really invested in really building a good profile, the next thing you can do is then create content yourself. And this is fantastic because not a lot of people create content for LinkedIn. And so when you do, it gets a decent amount of attention. So what you can do is share highlights from an event or conference you went to. And I love this. People will post pictures of themselves in front of their poster. So if you're participating in a research day this year, you can make sure you take a picture and write about that on your LinkedIn so you can share that with your connections. Another thing is if you go to a conference, you could write down that you went to that conference and highlight a couple of the cool people you met or the cool presentations you went to. is always great. You can post about an article that you read, advertise an event that you're hosting or participating in, and you'll see that that's what I do a lot on my LinkedIn is advertise the events that we have coming up that I want other people to know about. And of course, you can share your accomplishments or examples of your work. So if you receive an award or something like that, feel free and be excited to share that with your connections. And again, if you have an informational interview with somebody today, and 2 years from now, they see that you win this fancy award and they see it on LinkedIn, that's going to remind them of you and keep that positive thought in their head, which is always great. Okay, so now we're going to take a brief pause. I like to do the attendance in kind of the middle of the session, just in case anybody has to sneak out early. So I'm just going to pop the attendance form in the chat. If you are a UHN research summer student, please fill out this attendance form so that this session, attending this session, can contribute to your certificate of completion. I have somebody ask in the chat if they can view the presentation at a later time. Yes, we will send out the recording as well as all the slides later on. So if you have to leave after this, that is totally fine. We have a couple more seconds for you to scan the QR code or use the link in the chat to complete the attendance form. Another thing to mention quickly is that if you can't attend any of the sessions live, you can watch the recording, and then that will count towards your certificate of completion as well. We have a form you can fill out to prove that you watched it. Students outside of UHN cannot get the certificate of program completion. It is only for students that are part of UHN. Okay, so thank you very much. We are now going to move on to career exploration, which I also love. So LinkedIn is a powerful tool for career exploration. So this is if you don't necessarily know what kind of job you want to do in the future, what kind of career areas, you can really use LinkedIn to gather information and do research on what are your options. So some of the ways you can do this is you can search career and job title that you're interested in. You can search them in people. And so that will highlight for you people that have those job titles. And then you can look through their profiles and see what kind of education do they have? What kind of skills and experiences do they have? And while everybody has a different path to getting the positions that they have, by looking at many of these different profiles, you can kind of see trends and what kind of experiences might help you to get into those different career areas. You can always look at job postings, and I recommend people do this way before that they're ready to apply to jobs, because it'll really help you to understand again what kind of skills and expertises that those job postings require. So for example, I know a lot of people really want to volunteer or build different skills while they're doing their undergrad or graduate degrees. But if you don't know what kind of job you're looking for, it can be overwhelming to pick which experiences to choose with your limited time. So if you look and see, for those jobs that you're really interested in, you find out that a lot of people take business courses. And so business courses might be something that's useful for getting that job. Then you can focus your attention on that instead of 600 other things that aren't relevant for your job, the job you want. Although those are all, I'm sure, great experiences. Sometimes you have limited time and you want to focus it in. And lastly, for networking, what you can do is LinkedIn will show you your second connections that you have. And if any of those people have the job title that you're interested in. So for anybody who doesn't know, your first connection is somebody who you've connected with directly. Your second connection is someone that is connected through another connection of yours. So for example, let's say I'm connected to Dr. Hill, and Dr. Hill is connected to Bob. Well, then Bob is my second connection because I'm connected to Dr. Hill and Dr. Hill is connected to Bob. So what's really cool is then if I find that I have a second connection that has a job title that I'm interested in, then I can go to Dr. Hill and ask if they'd be willing to connect me to that person. So it's a really cool tool you can use to, again, build your network. Now, the biggest hesitation that people have about doing career exploration work on LinkedIn is that they're worried that other people will see that they've looked at their profile, because that is a feature of LinkedIn that you can see who's seen your profile. Um, I think it's not stalking, it's expanding your network or doing your research. So don't be scared of it. I actually think it's great when I see that other people are looking at my profile. And I'll tell you a small story about one time I saw that the CEO of a company had looked at my profile, and I was interested in that company. So I went and then looked at his profile. And then he went and looked at my profile again. And I was like, oh, cool. That means he's interested. So then I took that opportunity to go and send a connection request to him, and told him about what I was interested in and things like that. So sometimes those things can be powerful, and at the worst, it doesn't do anything. So don't worry about it. Use the power of LinkedIn for your career research, and don't think about who's seeing it. Another thing you can do for career exploration is you can follow companies that you're interested in working in. Even if you're not interested right now or you're not looking for jobs, you can look and follow companies whose work you like. What's cool about this is then you'll see more of their posts, their articles, and their job posts in your feed, so that you'll be able to keep in touch with what they're doing. Another feature is, again, you can see at the bottom, it shows you if you have any connections at work there. So then you can look and connect to those people and ask them for an informational interview if you're interested, or just, connect with them at any point in time. Now, another cool feature, which again I learned about on TikTok, is that they had just launched this feature where, in addition to following companies, you can also tell them that you're interested in working for them in the future. So there's a button you can hit, you say you're interested, and then recruiters will know that you are open to working for them in the future. I don't know what the success rate of this is, because it's new, but it never hurts to try things like that. Worst thing that can happen again is that they don't work. And obviously, you can tell I get a lot of my career development tips from TikTok as well. Research comes in all different places. So make sure you're engaging in that circle. If you like TikTok, there's lots of good tips on there. Okay, and lastly, another thing you can do, and this is a shameless plug, but you can use LinkedIn for career exploration. You can follow organizations like the ORT that regularly run career events, and that can help increase the amount that you see their events that they're hosting, and the content they have. Two other great organizations in the Toronto space are the Science to Business Network, who post a lot about the events they host that are related to careers in industry and in business. The Life Sciences Career Development Syndicate is based out of the University of Toronto, and they host fantastic events as well. So following them on LinkedIn can help you to see more of their content and be more aware of their events. Okay, so with that, we have about 13 minutes left. So what we want to do is open up for questions. But first, I want to take a quick poll to see, how useful did you find this workshop? I won't be offended. So we just love to know for future sessions, how useful is it? And now, while I let you answer that, we can open up for questions. So if anybody has questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We have a fantastic comment from one of the attendees that says that you can also look at people's profiles on private mode so that they can't see them. So that's great. And yes, another thing you can use LinkedIn for is to actually look at other people's profiles who you like, to use it as research to see what you should be doing in your or what you could be doing in your profile yourself. So that's great. Okay, so we'll pause there. Any questions? How often and how long should your post be? Great point. Great question. Um, so I find that LinkedIn so I've spoken to social media people before that say that you should post, twice a day. But I think that's super excessive, especially for individuals. So I would say, especially for a platform like LinkedIn where there isn't a lot of engagement, I think if you could post once a week, that would be amazing. But don't pressure yourself to do that either. Post whenever you have good content, and keep the quality of your content high. So that's, doesn't, there's no exact rules, but I would say whatever frequency you like. Um, and how long to do them. I think again, that's up to you. I vary my posts depending on what the content is and how, how much I need that space. But in general, people have short attention spans, so the shorter, the better, um, to be able to get a point across that you want. Okay, let's see what other questions we have. Would you ever recommend or have you ever used a LinkedIn subscription plan? Great question. I have used the premium plan before, and I didn't think it provided enough of a benefit in order to justify the cost. You do have access to a bunch of courses through LinkedIn, so if that's something you're interested in, it might be worth it for that feature. But other than that, I think you can more easily message people that you're not connected to at all with the premium plan. But that's about it. So I recommend they have like a free month trial, so you can try it out, especially if you try it out during a time that you have to put aside to take more courses or things like that. But I personally didn't find it too additional too exciting for the amount of money it was. We have a question. If for students that are unable to receive certificates for the series, can they put it on their experience on their resume or their LinkedIn? Of course, you can always say that you took the series, that attended these workshops. That's great. A tip from the audience, try to post your own thoughts and opinions regularly to increase engagement, which I agree. Yes. Somebody asked, what does third or second mean? And Dr. Hill answered that perfectly. It's the degree of connection. So again, first connection is someone that you've connected with directly. Second connection is someone that you're one connection away from. And third connection means that you are not connected to them through anyone. How do you approach an invitation to connect for people you don't know? That's a great question and something that comes up a lot. Everybody has a different opinion on this one. So it's up to you and your comfort level to decide what you are comfortable with. I think there's no harm in having more connections, so you're welcome to. Although when random people connect, there usually isn't a lot of benefit to it unless they're, again, sending a message to tell you why they're connecting. So for me, I have my job is to promote career development and opportunities, and I use my LinkedIn for that. So I don't mind if extra people follow me or connect with me. I like to share my message as far as possible. But if you don't care about that and you're not comfortable with accepting strangers' requests, you don't have to. Other people strictly don't accept strangers' requests because they think that they should only be connected with their first connections, people they actually know. Or if you want to keep your content really curated on your LinkedIn profile or like your LinkedIn feed, so you're only seeing content from people you know, that would be another reason why not to accept them. So it's up to you. Some people in the chat sharing their LinkedIn to connect, which is great. How do you approach an invitation to connect with people you don't know? That's a great question. Yeah, and I love Dr. Hill's recommendation. I think it's really easy to think of, not easy because it is challenging, but think about what you're interested in and what the reason you're connecting with them is, and then just try to say that in a succinct manner. So lots of people message me and that I don't know and say, "Oh, I see that you work at UHN, and I'm really interested in working in this space. I'd love to connect, or I'd love to ask you a couple of questions, or have an informational interview or things like that." And I think that's a great approach to take. Just be honest about what you're looking for, um, and it'll work. It can work. We have a great question about what are informational interviews, and I apologize that I've said that term many times without explaining it. So thank you for calling me out on that. But informational interviews are a tool that you can use where you connect with somebody and ask that they would be able to spend 15 or 30 minutes to chat with you so you can learn more about their career. And so, for example, if you're interested in being a medical science liaison, which is one of the paths that people take sometimes after a PhD, you can connect with somebody and ask if they'd be willing to tell you about their experience in that position. And then you can meet either virtually or over coffee and ask them questions. So it's a really powerful tool to be able to learn more about a specific company or a specific role, and then decide whether it is the right position for you. I know when I was in undergrad, I had this moment where I thought I wanted to be a cardiac perfusionist, and my co-op office set me up on an informational interview with a person in that role. And within 5 minutes of talking to them on the phone, I was like, "Ooh, this is terrible. I would definitely not want to be that," because they told me about how you're the person keeping their heart going during surgery, and I was like, "Ooh, I don't want to keep anyone's heart going during surgery. That sounds like way too much stress." So it just can help you really understand the role more practically to decide whether it's good for you. You can also ask them advice on, what they think a person who's exploring that career should know or should be doing. Amazing. So I think I've addressed all of the comments in the chat. If anybody has any additional questions, please let me know. If not, thank you so much for joining. I hope this was useful to you in some respect. I hope you consider coming to our next session, which is on exploring careers in healthcare and research. So there we'll be providing you with lots of different jobs besides just PIs and doctors. So you can learn more about some of the options that are available to you after your degree.